All right.
Come on up.
Right, our good friend Lisa.
That's right.
Always good to see you.
A little bit of rain. We're not used to that rain, you know. Yeah, I like listening to it when I'm sleeping, you know, on the roof. We are just remember to push the mic button, get the red power light, and then your mic's live.
That one? Good? You can hear me now?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good to see you today. Always good to be here. And always thankful for giving us the time with you today. It's just good to be here face to face, and I appreciate you always just accommodating us with our schedule as we kind of move through the state. So we are just starting our tribal tour, our fall tribal tour. Seems like we were just here this spring, so I think that means the summer went pretty fast. So I'd like to, I've given you a packet. I put an agenda in there that those are the things we're prepared to talk about today, depending on time. We also want to make sure that you have the time to share with us any concerns or comments or questions you might have. So I brought two folks with me today. I'll let them introduce themselves and then we can kind of move through the agenda if that works, Chairman.
Sounds great.
Okay. Casey.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. It's great to be here again. My name is Casey Peck. I am the Indian Health Service Tribal 638 Program Section Supervisor for the Health Resources Division at DPHHS, which in a nutshell means I deal mostly with Medicaid and your tribal health department. Thank you.
Good to see you again. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Mike Randall. I am the Medicaid and Health Services Executive Director, the new State Medicaid Director. I have been here a little over 3 months, so still getting used to Montana Medicaid program. Prior to joining Montana, I was a senior director at a company in Kansas City called Cerner Corporation. Cerner is a very large provider of EHR technology solutions. Before that, I spent almost 3 years as a Medicaid director in the state of Iowa. And then prior to that, almost 5 years in the state of Kansas as Medicaid director and division director. So I'm originally from Southern Missouri, grew up down there. I am married and have 2 kids and 8 grandkids. I'm still trying to remember. So yeah, 8 grandkids. And I spend a lot of time with those grandkids as much as I can. With technology the way it is today, it's a lot easier. You can video, because one of my children and 3 of the kids are in Poland right now, so we have to get that time zone correctly. I am retired from the United States Air Force. I spent time in California and Okinawa, New Mexico, Illinois. Spent my last 4 years in Minot, North Dakota. So very accustomed to the wind blowing and the snow blowing. So, you know, it's a pleasure to be here. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Well, congratulations, Mike. Sounds like we're lucky to have you here. And I want to thank you for your service in the military. And we share one thing. I have 10 children and grandchildren like you. So they're not some of them in Poland, though. That would be a little scary for me at this point in our history. But welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Mike for coming on our tribal tour. You know, you guys have heard me talk about how we build relationship is face to face, and it's important why we come a couple times a year amongst the other meetings we have. But it's just always important to me that when folks are sitting in Helena, they've had the experience on the reservations and with tribal governments as they make decisions that impact not only you, but the members you serve. So thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, so in your packet on the left side, we'll just go through those documents. The first one is our org chart. this changes often. We've had a lot of change in our state, in our agency. I think COVID changed that in the way people want to work, if they want to work, the ways they want to work. We've had a lot of movement of our staff moving to different agencies. And so we are, I would say we're understaffed, honestly. And if you look at, this is our high level organizational chart, you'll see some vacancies that we continue to recruit for and fill and want to fill. But it looks the same as when we came last time. The biggest change, I would say, before I turn it over to Mike to kind of give some updates on the Medicaid side, is Charlie Brereton is now our department director. So Adam Meyer was our director for about 18 months from Kentucky. He has left and returned back home. And so Charlie served over there in that blue box where it says chief of staff. He served a dual role in that position in the agency and also as the governor's health policy advisor. So he did that for quite a while and now has moved over to department director. They've hired someone new in the governor's office to be the health policy advisor. I don't know her name other than Rachel. I don't know her. Rachel Green, okay. And then this position is vacant at the moment. So he is new in the director role. And then really most of it stayed the same other than staff coming and going, but Mike could give you some updates on the purple boxes over there.
Purple boxes. Yeah, one thing that's different, you'll see, really have 3 divisions plus the, as Lisa refers to it, the purple boxes. Those are the healthcare facilities, the state facilities. So I'm also the executive director for the state healthcare facilities, Montana State Hospital, the Nursing Care Center, the MCDC. And what's new in the last several weeks is there is now a new chief healthcare facilities officer. So William Evo was the deputy chief of facilities. He was selected to be the chief healthcare facilities as we continue to strengthen his team and bring in appropriate resources so that we can appropriately really have a healthcare system here in the state of Montana for those healthcare facilities. If you take a look at everyone in my branch, which is what these 3 divisions in the healthcare facilities are, there's about 1,350 FTE within that group.
I think one thing we would reiterate, as you can see in the darker purple, that those are the health facilities that we have. When we came in spring, we talked to you about specifically the Montana State Hospital. We just want to reassure you that that facility remains open. We're still, we did lose the CMS certification, and as I mentioned before, we are fully funded for that. We did lose the 7 million approximately that we get in reimbursement that would go to our state general fund, but the department is fully funded for that. So still accepting clients and that's still moving along fine. Any additional comments there at all, Mike?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So that's really it for our organizational chart. Behind that is a task order list. So we brought this out a couple times. We think it's helpful to kind of see a quick overview of what's in place, what might be coming up for expiration. So as you can see between the first and last page, we have quite a few task orders with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. The one I would make mention that we're paying attention to right now mostly is under the HCSD. And we did change this and we put a key on the back page so you can tell what those acronyms mean. But that's in our Human and Community Services Division, and that's the Medicaid Eligibility Determination Task Order. So that is coming up for renegotiation. And I wanted to let you know that we are preparing a draft for you. Our folks, we have new leadership in the agency, so they've looked at the old one. This is our first 7-year period that's ending. And so we'll renegotiate a new 7-year task orders, what our plan is. This date's on here that the start date isn't, I don't think it's entirely accurate, but it does expire on January 13th, 23. And when there's money involved in these task orders, we can't go beyond that 7-year period because we're not able to do that. And so it's a partnership we have with the tribe. We will send you, Mr. Chairman, a draft that includes some of the changes we're proposing to that particular task order. and then get it to tribal health to look at, and your attorneys and so forth. And then we'd like to come over and have a visit with you about talking through those protestations that you may have as well, right? But our hope is that we end up with a negotiated final agreement prior to the end of this period. That's important work that you do on our behalf, really in partnership. I think it's important that people have different access to the services. And so while we have an OPA office, an Office of Public Assistance in Polson, not everybody's going to walk into a state office. And you guys are across the reservation. So we really appreciate the work that you do there. I think that's the main thing I would pay attention to on the task order list.
Lisa, is there any indication of what your changes might be, or?
I don't know yet. We had a preliminary internal meeting, and the administrator was preparing some changes, and I haven't had a chance to look at those, honestly, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it's anything big. I think it's just some refining, mainly. What we do have set up is we have Kelsey, I don't know how to say her last name. It's D-E-Y-L-E, Daly, maybe? I don't know. We'll just say it's that. She is a liaison, so she's under that Human and Community Services. We put her in place, so she's in touch with Joe's staff all the time, working through cases, looking at performance reports, training, just having access to each other. So that's been successful for the 4 tribes that do Medicaid eligibility. So, and she speaks very highly of the work that's being done over here. So the next document is just a save the date for a couple tribal consultations that we have, that we are planning for, that you have not had official notification of as of yet. Soon, probably next week, you'll be getting the invitation for the Child Care Development Fund tribal consultation that we're going to have. That's just with tribes, because tribes run their own CCDF, and our folks at the state now want to have a conversation about really how we could better work together and coordinate. We now have licensing that had moved from the Office of Inspector General over to childcare, and they just feel like that just solidifies everything. So they want to just work together, looking at maybe some reciprocal work together, that kind of thing. So I'll send an invitation for that. After that meeting on the 16th, we're also having an advisory committee that we would invite those that you send to join that as well, to come and participate in that if they'd like to. We will pay the cost for those full 3 days or 4 days for up to 2 slots for you. So, so that's a good opportunity. And then a really important one that we're planning for right now is the Medicaid tribal consultation. And typically we do 2 a year formally for Medicaid. This will be December 5th and 6th in Helena. We're sorting through the topics right now, but the 2 that are kind of jumping to the top for us is 1, transportation. So folks that are Medicaid eligible, going to a Medicaid covered service with a Medicaid covered provider, are eligible to get transportation reimbursement. But we also know, and Mike comes with new eyes and new ears, right? When we appreciate that our current policies that we have in place sometimes deter access the way that we would like to see it. So a couple policies, for example, 1, we pay to the nearest provider. And so, well, a service may be, I mean, I only use Browning because it's my good example, right? If you're in Browning and your cancer doctor's in Great Falls, so that's what, 120 miles one way. Our policy right now is pay to the nearest provider. And so there might be a cancer provider in Cut Bank 35 miles away. And so we reduce that claim and only pay to Cut Bank and back. And so that's a challenge, right, for people. The other thing we do is we reimburse after the fact. So our policy is that if you had an appointment in Great Falls, you would call Mountain Pacific Quality and say, I have an appointment, here's where I'm going, da, 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 da. They would then verify that you kept that appointment after it was over, and then the reimbursement would come. And so that limits people's ability to travel in the first place. Sometimes the claim is reduced, you know, there's challenges with that. So Mike's paying attention to that. And we'd like to, when we're done with this tour, the last place being Fort Peck, that's an 8-hour drive back, he'll have a better understanding, right, of the distance if he hasn't already. So we're excited with, it's something we've talked about for years. And so
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how do you get the word out about that? I know there's people, I mean, I use the reimbursement and I think it works wonderful and I appreciate it. But there are people that are on that Medicaid and I ask, because they want gas money from our organization. And I say, well, how come you aren't using this line to call in and let them know the process, I mean, do the process? And they said, I didn't even know I was eligible. So I don't know, is there an eligibility requirement for accessing that? I mean, I know you have to be on Medicaid, but
I mean, that's really the three things, right? Is you gotta be on Medicaid and be going to a provider that's enrolled in Medicaid and a service that's covered under Medicaid.
and a number that you can,
And then you have to do the
Yeah.
prior authorization. Did you want to have any comments on that?
No, there's no other requirements. If they're Medicaid eligible, and it's Medicaid provider, CHIP is also eligible, or Helping Montana Kids, I think is what the CHIP program is here. So we need to do a better job of communicating that throughout, our website is not, in my opinion, since I've been here, we need to update our website. We're going through that process. It's just too clinky to maneuver through. But we also need to work with our eligibility folks and get that communication out that it's a Medicaid benefit. And so that's why, as Lisa said, when I started looking at this and not just the fact that Montana is a very large geographic state, right? We have very limited, what I call non-emergency Medicaid medical transportation providers in the state. So I think that when I had them look, there were 12 providers in the entire state, but only 2 active. So that's a challenge too, but also that after the fact reimbursement and getting access to it. I don't want that to be a barrier to someone getting healthcare services.
I guess question to Joe, you guys are well aware of this and probably do the education of those clients also.
We do, and they pointed out some of the challenges, after the fact reimbursement is challenging, so typically we've been providing gas vouchers and travel support prior to their appointment, so they can make those appointments. And then we'll kind of work with Medicaid after whatever reimbursement's there. At least pointing on the other thing that the closest provider may not be that particular person's provider that they established care with, so that creates another set of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I do, I have seen a business card that says Medicaid transportation that, I don't know if we still make those, but those could be helpful to people to give to Joe, to give to people, right? It has the phone number on there that they can move through the process and that. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we just assume people would know that, or they've read all that information that comes in their big letter, right? That they're on Medicaid. We all miss that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's one of the topics. So we expect to send you an invitation letter with some questions like we've done before, so that you can express what some of the challenges and barriers are. But we'd like to have a discussion at our tribal consultation about that in detail. The other topic we're considering is really around, we know there's been a lot of talk around the tribal residential facility that the tribes are kind of leading, with help from the Montana Healthcare Foundation. And we know that that's been awarded to, Montana Healthcare Foundation put out an RFP because they want to do a full assessment. And so that's moving through. But one thing we want to talk about is the tribal residential rate and talking through that process, really how that's paid for now and how we might consider that be paid for in the future. Really, as you think about sustainability for those facilities, and I don't know what your desire here is if you're thinking of a facility of your own, but it would help you, give you information that would be helpful to your long-term planning and so forth. So that's a couple topics that we're considering right now. We want to make sure we have enough time to hear from everybody as well. So more information will come in the invitation letter. Like I say, likely with some questions so we can understand it. And with Mike being a new Medicaid director, just hearing what those are. We've heard some of them before, but there could be new challenges or things that we're just not aware of. So.
Go ahead, Carol.
Patricia Hibbler's our contact person on that. And also I think we'd all love to have our own treatment center, but we know it's not possible. The long-term funding, everything would just probably, you know, devastate us as a tribe within our budget. So I don't think that's possible. I think I'm glad to see all tribes getting on board.
Yeah.
Not all of them yet, but
Yeah.
hopefully soon we'll have them all on board and figure out a place to locate it, because we really have a strong need of people, you know, using and addiction and all of that. So we just like to see it get up and going soon.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good to see the collaboration, you know, and the discussion about it and the need, definitely. The American Indian Health Leaders meets October 5th and 6th in Billings, and so they'll give an update at that as well, just so you know. We'll be there as well for the first day. We don't, they close the second day, but we'll be there the first day. So it'd be good to hear what those updates are. The firm that they hired to do the assessment, which they figure will take a couple years, is Klaus Law, C-L-A-U-S-E, Klaus Law. So be good to hear what their plans are. And so the next document behind that is a packet of information titled DPHHS 2023 Legislative Proposals. I thought this might be helpful to you folks who are very interested always in the legislature and engaged. And so basically this is a packet that we prepared and provided to our interim committee, the Children's and Families Interim Committee. And we're required as a state agency to say, tell us, you know, they want us to go to that committee and say, what are you thinking about for legislation that the department wants to change? And so there's 16 pieces of legislation here that we are proposing changes to. We presented it to the interim committee on August 26th. Basically, they kind of give some sort of blessing that they support it. 3 of those they took out and said, we're not going to do that. The department can still move forward. We would just get our own sponsor for the bill. And those 3, just for your, is the first one, the revised Montana Child Care Act. Midway down, the repeal Citizens Review Board Program Act. And at the bottom, the update CHIP eligibility. Those are the 3 that they're just going to set aside and we'll continue on our own. But and then in the back of these, I printed each of the information sheets. This hasn't been done before in my time at the agency, where this is actually available for people to see. So it is on a website and I gave that to you. But I like this, like, what is the issue? What's the problem? And why do we want to fix it? And so it kind of has an information sheet on each of these topics. Mike, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you did fine. I mean, if there's, Mr. Chairman, members of council, there's any specific questions you may have, if it's one of my bills that we put forth as Medicaid, I can certainly try to address those questions.
Good, Carol?
Is it on the chopping block? I've heard that numerous times. People are getting worried about that, but I don't even know if that's even possible.
I just heard chopping block. I didn't hear anything before that. I'm sorry.
Is Medicaid
Expansion.
Medicaid expansion.
on the chopping block?
It's my understanding that it does sunset in 2025, but I also, as my understanding and discussions I've had, that I'm not aware of the administration's desire to move that forward as far as letting it sunset. Doesn't mean it can't occur if the legislature determines that, but as far as I'm aware, it's not one of the governor's desires to allow that to sunset.
So if it's legislative 2023, should we be working on it now rather than wait till we get to the sunset deadline?
I believe, and this, please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is every 2 years. The other states I've been in, they meet annually from the legislature. When we go into session in January of 23, we will be working on the 24-25 biennium session. So that would be the time. Yes, because if it does, I believe it's supposed to sunset on June 30th of 2025. So the end of that fiscal year.
And I hope the governor doesn't allow that to happen or chop it or whatever.
Well, as I said, I don't, it's my understanding and discussions I've had, and I even think Director Brereton has said, is that it's not a desire of the governor to drive that forward.
Mr. Chairman, I would say just if we look back at last session in 2021, we did have a change to the continuous eligibility. That was one change around Medicaid expansion. We haven't been able to implement that change because the public health emergency didn't allow us to. We will implement that particular change once the public health emergency ends. So I did have a conversation with Director Brereton probably 3 weeks ago about the legislature. I try to keep you updated as I can. I hope he comes to our tribal consultation on Medicaid because I asked him if he'd come and just kind of say, what is the position of the agency and of him? But he did reassure me, same thing Mike said, that the governor is not interested and has said this publicly in eliminating Medicaid expansion, in leading that charge. But there's always a but, right? There is a whole legislature who may wish to make changes. So if you were asking my personal advice, I think you should always be ready to tell your story, what the impact is, and you'll see that in the revenue report when Casey goes through that. So the risk is always there, that it could come up at any time. So the other piece just wanted you to know is I also talked to the director about the tribal input day. I always talk about this because it's been an important part of the tribes being a part of the legislative system about our budget. So in the past, we had 5 legislative sessions in a row where during the 40 days that our budget is up in front of our budget subcommittee, we had a tribal input day. And that really ended up to be up to 4 hours on one day where we would invite tribes and urbans and IHS, but IHS can't come apparently, to talk about the impact of our budget to you and your members. We lost that opportunity last session. And so it meant that you had to move through the system as everybody else would. But you know, when we're presenting our budget division by division, there's always a public input day. So it means traveling to Helena a lot to talk about different programs within our agency. So Charlie is interested in pursuing that and hopefully can make that happen. What we don't know right now is how the election's going to turn out. So we could end up with a different budget subcommittee chairman than we currently have right now. So you have the Chairman Regier was the chairman of that budget subcommittee. He's currently chairman of the interim budget committee, which is new during the interim between legislatures. We don't know if he'll stay, but he will talk with him about that if he does. And he is interested in having that happen again. So I'll continue on that. I'll continue pursuing that. I think that's important to do. So. And then on your agenda, you can see the Medicaid enrollment numbers. I just wanted to share those with you. There is more detailed information, but one thing we're keeping on our website now also is the all Medicaid numbers and the percentage of American Indians that identify that way. And so you can see those 2 numbers there. We report the Medicaid expansion numbers, and then we also report all Medicaid, which includes traditional and Medicaid expansion. So if our population 7% is Indians and we're at 16.5% on Medicaid expansion and 18.6 on Medicaid, then you can certainly see there's a need for that in our for those that we serve. So those would be the couple things I would report on. If there's extra time, I have a few more I'd like to just follow up on, but I think with that, Mike, did you want to add anything before we move over to Casey?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
I guess the other thing I would say, you do have a little card in your packet. So in regards to the public health emergency, which everybody is very interested in, that was last renewed on July 15th. And so we're kind of watching mid-October to see if that gets renewed again. Kind of the word is Mike, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the Secretary of the federal HHS has made the statement that he fully expects another 90-day extension for the public health emergency. And obviously, during that process, during that extension, we are not allowed to disenroll any member from Medicaid or CHIP because we have the enhanced FMAP that's being provided from the federal government. I would expect, as we're doing our planning, I think there's some federal agencies who expect it to end in January 15th. There are some agencies that I've spoken with, especially the National Association of Medicaid Directors. We believe in planning for it to go through June 30th of next year. So it just doesn't, we don't know, but we are preparing for the public health emergency to end. We are going through a process of our disenrollment procedures, communicating to members. One of the most important things is for members to make sure their contact information is updated. because that is something that we will be sending information to them, to whatever that contact information is in the system. So if they haven't updated that, they really need to update that. We're also, as a leadership team in Medicaid, looking at all of the authority changes that we requested during the public health emergency. So which ones of those will be allowed to continue, which were those authorities and changes, whether it was the waiver or state plan amendment or something of that nature, which one of those are we going to continue after? And then what's that process that we have to go through to make that continue? So we are meeting on a bi-weekly basis right now, going through a very large spreadsheet of all those flexibility that we requested during the PHE.
Good, Carol.
Director or Lisa, I would like to ask you about Montana Medicaid being able to pay for substance abuse disorder treatment out of state. Like bordering states like Idaho, that we have, for instance, we have, people we would like to send to Washington. Is that a possibility, or I don't know if it's prohibited or what? Maybe you can help.
It's okay. Yes, we are aware of that situation. And it is something that we are looking into to see like which authority we might need to address that and how we can look at that. When we have our consultation in December and we start talking about how we might pay for a residential treatment center, one of the other things that we're going to be talking is spa authority and what we might need to change in regards to residential treatment centers. And so making that spa change will also hopefully help us address some of the situations, especially I know with youth. Yeah, our state plan authority
Okay,
that allows us to pay for certain Medicaid services and how we pay for them. Will also be something that we're looking at because I know that we're lacking in youth residential treatment centers. And so we are having to look outside of Montana to make that happen. So are aware and we're definitely looking at ways that we can address this and help get people what they need.
okay, and so the time to address will be after the consultation, or can you get something sooner, a determination or not? Maybe the director can.
What, pardon me?
I said, maybe the director can.
The director can.
Director might know.
One of the things that I've done over the last 3 months is I haven't completed it yet, but I'm looking at it from a top down from basically all of our programs. And where, from my experience, we have some opportunities to change our program, whether it's, our state plan amendment or agreement with CMS. Is there a waiver authority that we have to request? And it's similar to what we were just talking about in transportation, that was one of those reviews that we went through. And I'm having all the program officers brief me on all the different programs and what their challenges and opportunities are. And that's one of them that Casey and I have had that conversation with. But we have to go through working with CMS and others internally to see what that process has to be. And I'm sure you've heard it before from previous directors or others that working with CMS, sometimes it is not a quick process.
I would suggest you bring it up at the consultation. I mean, it just helps us to know that we have it on record, right? And this is a concern, and we always encourage that. Because we are spending a fair amount of time talking about residential treatment at that consultation is our plan.
Yeah, sometimes Spokane is closer for us in any way, and so maybe take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Spokane, Washington. Oh. So Canada's pretty close too.
Yeah, I can't reverse it.
So a couple of things I would talk about the public health unwinding is, so once we get notification, so we're kind of watching this October 15th to see if this would be renewed for another 90 days. And then we kind of watch to see 30 days into that, CMS has said they would like to give us 60 days notice of when the public health emergency is going to end. We're watching for that final date, whenever that might come. That's going to trigger us to do all of these things that Mike said we're planning for. We will plan on doing a tribal webinar just with tribes that are partners in this to talk about what's going to happen. But if you see the Medicaid numbers on the middle of this page, we have 285,000 lives covered by Medicaid in Montana. We need to redetermine eligibility for all of those. over a period of time, and that's a huge task ahead of us. So we know it'll take some time, but you guys have done a great job. I've seen one of your tribal health messages come through on my email, and you're doing just that. You're telling people, contact us, update your information, because we haven't talked to people. We're at our highest numbers with Medicaid and Medicaid expansion because we haven't taken anybody off with the public health emergency. So thank you for doing that. I think I want to mention one more thing before I move it to Casey, and that's SNAP. And Councilwoman Langford came to our April tribal consultation that we talked about SNAP. One of the things that came up from CSKT and the Chippewa Cree was that the desire for the tribe to administer their own SNAP program. And so I got an update on that this week from our folks. So currently the state of Montana administers that. And if we look at the language of the law that allows that, we've got some interpretation from our lawyers who say administer versus operate. And the way we're reading that is the way the language says to administer it, for a tribe to administer, the state has had to have failed in the administration of that program. We don't feel that's the case, of course, but there's also some language around operation and wondering, we're kind of considering if the tribe is not able to administer that, can they operate some of the pieces and parts of SNAP? Similar to what we do with Medicaid eligibility. So we're looking at that. We're planning to have a conversation with USDA to follow up on that. What I would mention is there was federal legislation introduced in about a year ago. It's Senate Bill 2757. Senate Bill 2757 that was introduced in September of 21 by Mike Rounds out of South Dakota and Tina Smith out of Minnesota. And it really is around tribes administering their own SNAP program. So that seems to be stalled, but it might be something you pay attention to or talk to your Congress folks about, because you guys have always expressed an interest in doing that. So just wanted to give you an update on that. That's as far as we've gotten on that. So, so with that, Casey.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Chair McDonald, members of the council, you have your Medicaid and Medicaid expansion reports in your folders or on your fancy screens too, probably. Yeah. Well, so when we come out in the fall, we are able to provide a full 2 years of Medicaid reimbursements to you. We do prepare these reports on a state fiscal year. So the timeframes are going to be July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021 for the first year, and July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 2022 for the second year. If you'll turn to page 3 in your packet, this first chart here shows you overall payments that we've made. The blue line is going to be Medicaid and Medicaid expansion together, both for year 1 and year 2. And then we broke those out also into Medicaid payments and Medicaid expansion payments. One of the things I think we're able to see on this chart is that in year 2, we are seeing a recovery out of COVID. So your revenues have gone up the second year than they did. 2021 was definitely a full COVID year, where we saw a lot of people staying home for that full first year. When we go to page 4 and chart 2, we pulled everything out by services that we've reimbursed the tribe for in these 2 years. So you'll see in your charts, year 1 is red, year 2 is blue, and you'll see the reimbursements by services. And that is both Medicaid and Medicaid expansion together. One of the things that we can see in year 2 is you are seeing an increase in your outpatient visits. So more people feeling comfortable to go into your clinics and get services. When we look at page 5 on chart 3, I consider this just kind of a flow chart. It just kind of shows you when your revenue reimbursements are coming in. And as you can see in your chart, revenues come in really consistently for Medicaid. On the next page, on page 6, and then also on page 7, we took the information in the previous charts and broke the reimbursements out by service and then by month. So you can see how much you're getting reimbursed for each service for each month. Page 6 and 7 include both your Medicaid and Medicaid expansion payments. And you can see that there was an increase from year 1 to year 2. And then also for your information and then for consideration and anything that you might need this information for, we broke it out by Medicaid and Medicaid expansion populations. So on page 8 and 9 is your Medicaid population, also by the amount of services that they received and how much was reimbursed each month. So for your Medicaid population for year 2, you see that you were reimbursed a little over $9 million. But when you flip to the next pages on page 10 and 11, when we take a look at your Medicaid expansion population for year 2, you can see that you were reimbursed a little bit over 13 million. So you have a larger Medicaid expansion population than you do a traditional Medicaid. In questions that we've had, especially from Councilwoman Langford, if Medicaid expansion were to go away, you can see that you would have quite a loss in revenue. On page 12, we do like to provide for your information. We pull out the enrollments that we have in our MMIS system, just so people can take a look and see what we have in there. We've pulled them out by provider names, the MPIs that they're registered under, addresses, and that way it's a quick glance so anybody can see what we currently have in our system. Also broken out by provider location, year 1 and year 2, and how much each one brought in. We like to include on table H for anyone's consideration, all of the available open revenue codes that are payable at this time. So these would be services that are already being provided or services that could possibly be considered in the future. Of note, I think it's exciting that we have 2 full pages of revenue codes at this time. We used to only have 1. So opportunities have expanded over the last couple of years. And so that's good news. One of our most recent expansions and opportunities, we sent a letter to the chairman on September 7th. We had a Medicaid consultation last December in 2021, where we talked about the behavioral health continuum. And at the end of that consultation, based on everyone's feedback, we prioritized, what everyone wanted to see happen first. The number 1 prioritization was to be able to bill for multiple behavioral health services in one day. The example being that Medicaid members come in and they might have an individual therapy session and a group therapy session on the same day. Factors that would cause that to happen could be maybe their work schedule only allows them to take off so many hours in the day, transportation, they could maybe only get where they needed to go once a week, and maybe childcare options. They could only find someone to watch their kid. The way that we reimburse IHS and the tribes and the structure in the system is based on a revenue code, and you can only bill 1 revenue code per day. So the request was to allow a second billing opportunity. We did take a look at that. We looked at our authority, what we might be able to do, how we could update our system, and we were successful in getting a second billing opportunity allowed in there. So that's there now based on the ask that was given to us. So that's great. One of the things we were also able to do, because it was an official ask at the consultation, was go back with a retro effective date. So one of the things that I'll definitely talk, with tribal health about when we get there is that if they're able to go back and look and see if somebody had an individual therapy and a group therapy after December 7th of 2021, but they were only able to bill us at that time for one service, they can go back and submit another claim for that second service that might have been provided.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, is there any revenue codes that CSKT isn't traditionally billing for that you can tell us about?
At this time,
We should be working on.
at this time, I would say it's mostly the really large services that you aren't currently providing, which would be your like inpatient hospital, which you don't currently have one. And also the other thing that you don't provide is like CT scans. Again, a large medical item that costs a lot of money. Other than that, you guys do provide all of the ambulatory services on an outpatient basis that are currently available to you. And then on the last page, just for informational purposes, we do provide a list of provider types as far as how we view services within the Medicaid system. So if you provide your own ambulance services, that's a completely separate provider type. It takes a separate enrollment and it gets a fee for service reimbursement. Also, if you were looking at home and community-based services, a separate enrollment than your regular Medicaid kind of health services that you're already enrolled for. That's also fee for service. So just kind of so you know how Medicaid is structured, we provide this chart for you. If there are any questions from anyone, I'd be happy to answer them.
No questions? Pretty thorough. Oh, Patty? Joe? No? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that information. Very, very grateful for that. Quick question about the SNAP program that really caught my interest. So what would be the strategy that we would need to take over our own SNAP program? What needs to happen to make that happen?
Mr. Chairman, Len, I think we're pursuing on our end to see, I mean, we certainly support that, and we publicly said that we support that, your desire to do that. So we're working with USDA to see how we might do that. On our tribal consultation in April, the feds were on that call, so they heard the request as well. They just participated and listened, so that was really good. It's the first time they've done that. So we're going to continue that discussion in our area, and if we get to the feds and they say, well, we interpret the same way you do, and unless the state if the state has failed, is considered failed, then the tribe could take over. I don't know if that we want to admit that, I'll be honest, right? So our desire is to keep administering SNAP, but if the tribe wants to and is able to, we support that. So we're going to pursue that to see if that's not a possibility right now. Can you do pieces and parts through the operation piece? So we want to explore that if this other option is not available. I would say this is a discussion between you and the feds, right? The tribe wants to, you should make your wishes known to that agency, even though they were on the phone call. But I would also talk to the US Congress folks. I think they're the ones who oversee federal programs. So I would continue letting them know what your desire is. And then, you could check this bill to see if it's going to move, watch this bill, participate in that, express your support for that. I don't hear a lot of talk about it really, honestly, nationally, but I know that at least you folks in Chippewa Cree have expressed a desire to do that. So we do support it. We do support it whatever way we can. We will, but that's how I kind of see where it's at right now and what you maybe could do. Mr. Chairman, one final thing I would just comment on, just to let you know, I think I shared this when I was here this spring, is we do have new leadership in our Child Support Services Division. And we've made a large effort to work with the 4 tribes that operate their own child support program with the feds. We know that people move on and off the reservation, so sometimes we have jurisdiction, sometimes you do, and that's the case across the state. So we've reached out to Hank, and we've had a lot of conversation with Hank. We came to Missoula, we all met, all of our teams met at the end of June. We went up to, in August, we went up to the Child Support Summit to be a part of that. So we're trying to engage in a different way, and the intent is just better relationships, better communication, and coordination when we need your help in enforcing child support and vice versa. We're talking about ability to transfer cases if that's a possibility. So I just want you to know we're working through all that with Hank. She's been wonderful to work with. We just think we need to do this because some things aren't working very well. We know they can be improved, and so we're committed to doing that. I think Christy Twardowski, you remember Christy, she came with me when she worked for Medicaid eligibility. She's now the administrator of that division and has worked with tribes and is interested in just us doing better. And then Marty Vining, who I think has been here as well. So those are the 2 leadership there. So we've enjoyed learning more about child support. We're all new to that arena, honestly, but very important work that your department does and our folks as well. So that's all the updates I have for you. So we would leave it to see if there's any further questions or comments you'd like to share with us.
Well, Lisa, as always, it's just great to have you here and great information. The communication is always wonderful. And Mike, it's great to meet you and I wish you the best. And I know you're going to do well for us. So, and Casey, again, good to see you. I appreciate the information and look forward to continued consultation, and our staff will be attending the next, when is that? October, December? Anyway, whatever the dates are. Any more comments from council?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jennifer, and then Len.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for coming. This information is really helpful and I really appreciate how thorough it is and that you made handouts for us because these are really good reference tools. So thank you. Thank you for coming.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. And yes, I'd just like to reiterate Jennifer's message to you, but also Carol brings up a good point about the sunset date of Medicaid, because that's going to come upon us fast. We don't know what kind of administration we're going to have at that time. But we can always count on the fact that if this is a service that provides to the Native American community, there will be a tax on it. I've seen that time and time again. So yes, we need to begin now on how we are going to address that particular issue when it comes up. And I would suggest that at some point in time, maybe through the Tribal Leaders Organization, that we get all the tribes together and talk about that and see how we're going to address that when the time comes, because we don't want to wait until 2025 and then they come at us and then we have I don't want to say organizations, but entities attacking Medicaid expansion, because yeah, it's just been it's helped so many people. I've seen the changes that it's done out there in the community. So, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and and thank you guys for taking the time to visit with us. Lisa, we always appreciate that effort because it means so much to us. So thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
I also want to thank you. You're always there to help. So, but this, I think, Mr. Chair of the council, I really think we should have our legislative people in here to hear what's going on too, because they're the driving force over there. They have the eyes and ears of what's going on. And why they're not here, I don't understand, but it would have been helpful to have them in here, and I think they need a packet because it tells you everything basically right here. Losing $25 million is gonna be difficult to turn around in a tribal health budget, trust me. So I think we really need to be on top of it, but thank you so much, all three of you, for traveling around the state and listening and seeing where tribes live and see the conditions and all of that. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Joe or Patty, you have any comments? Joe, go ahead.
Just a couple notes. We've got time scheduled with the group from noon. So if you have additional information you want to ask or share with them, they'll be here for a while, meeting with us and staff. I think going forward, we'll be working closely with Montana on when we take the deep dive into the elders care program. So I believe there'll be a lot of communication going back and forth regarding that. The deep dive we're taking into the elders care program going forward. And Lisa or Casey, there was a mention of a elders governors conference on aging. Is there a date selected for that yet? Is that something that's calendared yet?
I believe it is.
Okay,
Joe, I'll find that date.
okay.
And
So-
figure out
so
when that is.
The governor's pulling a group together to discuss aging specifically, and I thought that invite might go out to us and we can participate in that somewhat.
Mr. Chairman, finally, I think with Medicaid expansion and you think about how you're going to tell your story, because everybody has a different story. And as you prepare for that, I think my suggestions would be to use that opportunity when you have time with the governor specifically, right, during his summit or those meetings that you share that concern. So he's aware of that. Or you can request a special meeting through Misty, to get that done as well. I think any information he has in his back pocket is helpful. And I think thinking about this whole, so you have to understand, people in Helena do not understand how healthcare is delivered in Indian country. They just don't. And so thinking about those additional pieces of, the dollar impact, but there's also impact off the reservation when you purchase care and you pay for care. So there's an economic impact to those off of your reservation. So keep in mind there's a lot of thinking around economic development in the legislature and what that impact might be to them as you purchase care that you don't provide here. So, but it's never too early. I just think, it's a calmer time right now where people can hear differently than in the middle of a legislature when it's pure chaos, and many different issues coming up. So we don't know if it's coming up. I guess if I ever had a crystal ball, I would think it would come up. Why wouldn't it come up? But we just don't know. And it could be snuck in a bill somewhere. It could be open discussion. We just don't know. So we'll respond accordingly, and I'll keep you as updated as I can what I learn, but I don't know. I'm not over there at the legislature. We stay away. But as much as information I can share with you, I certainly will, and keep you updated.
Go ahead, Patty.
Thank you. I just want to let you know, Chairman and Council, that I'll make sure that our policy shop gets a copy of the packet, and I'll also apprise them of Senate Bill 2757 so they can watch that moving forward also around SNAP. So thank you.
Just one final comment.
Go ahead, Carol.
Didn't the governor cut the SNAP program a while back? Like within about maybe 6 months, 4 or 5 months, a portion of SNAP program?
I'm not familiar with that. There's been talk around kind of the summer lunches and some of that, but I think we recovered from that and found a way to fund some of that. So I have not heard at all about SNAP typically being.
Okay, so that is what really got me going about this Medicaid expansion, cut or whatever the case may be. If you can do that to children, I mean, what prevents anybody in the legislature from bringing up legislation to take this away? And it's just scary, but thank you. Thank you for being forward with me.
Well, it'd be nice if the governor just said, you know what? I'm not gonna support any changes here. I'm gonna get my veto pen out, so don't even waste our time. That would be, I've known some governors to do that, in the history of my life, but I don't know. That we'll get a hold of Misty Cool and, make our discussions with the governor. Sounds like a good place to start, so. Thank you. And travel safe. Stay out of the rain.
Enjoy the rain.
Good luck on staying out of the rain. Okay, Jen?
I have Pete White on for that IAC request.
Yes, okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Council, and thank you for allowing me to get on the agenda in such short notice. So today what I'm bringing to you is a resolution authorizing voting delegate to the Intertribal Ag Council. A little bit of background on that. I was approached by the IAC just recently to become a delegate to the caucus. As you guys know, this was a council action, and Anita Matt was our caucus delegate for our tribe. So really what this would do is it gives us voting access to the Intertribal Ag Council, which pretty much helps with broad agriculture issues in Indian country, as well as food sovereignty and tribal member agriculture businesses. Gives us a voice in Indian country on policy issues that happen at the legislative level. So today what I'm bringing to you, as they had asked me to be a delegated member. However, what that in turns is, we need a resolution by council to allow me to be that delegate. In the past, you guys have also had alternate delegates, and I left the resolution open to that. So if there was a member of council or someone else that you felt needed to be in that role, we can definitely add that as well at this time.
Thank you, Pete. Yeah, our board appointments and committee appointments had Mike as the alternate delegate with Anita as the primary. So we still have that as a standing resolution.
Okay.
What we would have to do is include you, but we also want to know if there was a prerequisite that they had to be an elected official or not.
No, there is no prerequisite if it needs to be elected official. What they look for is members within the ag community who is vocal and active within the IAC. I am a member of the IAC, just an individual, and have been active with them for, gosh, probably the last 10 years in some capacity.
I briefly talked to Mike about it this morning, and Mike doesn't have any problem with this action if council wants to do it, but he wants to retain as the alternate and become more involved if possible under his time frame that he has. So the consideration would be to replace Anita with Pete as our primary. And that's the request before us right now with the resolution. Mike, you have anything? Good. Okay. Motion by Carol to approve the resolution.
One caveat that he comes back and reports to the council on his findings, so we're all aware of what's happening out there in case we get out there and can advocate for that.
Absolutely. Second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous? Okay, Pete.
Okay,
We
thank you very
expect-
much.
We expect full video reports.
You bet, no problem. And, just, to add to Carol's point, there with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, there are a lot of things within agriculture that are available, and not only available to tribal members, but also available to tribes in the capacity of energy, agriculture, conservation. So, it's a really good time for agriculture right now, especially on that federal level.
Thank you, Pete. And I'm glad you're an active member. So that's good. That gives us an advantage right there. So appreciate it. Appreciate you stepping up. And
You bet.
we look
Thank-
forward to your reports and your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Anything else?
That's Martin's request. Are you gonna do that this afternoon?
Okay, let's do it now. Yeah. $1 billion because it's a big party.
Invite me to. I needed to reset my computer. I thought we were done. I do have documents to share. Let me jump on the meeting real quick, if you don't mind.
Just gotta be up to resort by noon. So got a little bit of time.
It's not the right one. Okay, here we go. I'm back. Where am I? So the Bear Tracks Bridge dedication, we've been talking to you about that for a minute now. Because Shane was getting overwhelmed, apparently. I ended up taking over, kind of taking the lead from our side. Hopefully we can have a great event, and I'm just talking to fill time. And so what we did is we have an account that Zach Campbell had identified. It's actually part of the Medicine Tree fund that they had set up to purchase the property down in Darby by the Medicine Tree, I believe. And so he had identified funds from that to cover the budget for this event. The event, they brought it up to 26,000. That amount will go down. That was before Missoula County had got funding from different organizations, and had now they have $50,000 that they've raised for this event. And so the amount that we have right now, like I said, is 26,000 even. So all we need to do is pretty much approve that amount. And if I could find the budget. Sorry, never reset your computer. That's one lesson that you should learn, or I should learn. I can't find it. Yeah, so anyway, give me one.
I know. Yes.
I had all the backup ready to
Okay.
go, and then I reset my computer because I thought we were leaving, so.
Okay, no problem. Just, I'll give you a quick update on, yesterday was World Peace Day. And last night, maybe you heard it on the news the last couple of days, but the church at top of Post Creek Hill had a World Peace Pole dedication. And they invited me to be there to unveil it with their local regional pastor. And then we had Stevie Arca was there to read the language in Salish, and he gave a pretty good speech. I really enjoyed Steve's speech that he gave. And then we had a drum and song and some other speeches, but it was a pretty nice event. It was really welcoming, really inclusive. So wanted to make sure you all knew that. The Methodist Church on top of Post Creek Hill, they're pretty, yeah, it was good. Okay. Will do.
Okay,
Hung on to them for you.
thank you, sir. I appreciate that update. I wish I should have gone. But I was getting my dad a windshield. This is the information from Zach Camel. He has set up the account. The Salish Ponderay Culture Committee will be doing all the billing and everything, so everything will be funneled through them. This is just kind of to verify that the account was set up. And then here is the actual budget. Like I said, at least this, the highlighted amounts, if that's showing up as highlighted, will actually come off the amount. Because like I said, Missoula County's done a great job of helping out. They dedicated $10,000 of their budget this year, and then they've raised another 40,000. And so they're basically saying that they can cover a lot of these costs. CSKT has already paid for the banners, signs and frames, the reservation, and then the graphic design. And so that's something that we're actually kind of coming in after the fact. So Zach had rounded up the amount, and it's a not to exceed amount. So the 26,000 should come down considerably. So they just asked me to have this done. So I would appreciate the support. Thank you.
Motion to authorize that up to that amount for the Bear Tracks Bridge dedication.
Motion by Carol to approve the up to $26,000 budget amount for the Bear Tracks Bridge dedication on Egan's Avenue in Missoula. Second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Abstain. 8-4, 1 abstention. Len was out of the room. Thank you for your work on it, Martin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I apologize for not having this in a better format. That was my mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will break for recess for Quatucknuck Enterprises Corporations.
So Shane was overwhelmed.